time will tell, but what is happening for certain is the public discourse has changed in a way we haven't ever seen before, with U.S. officials openly telling the Israelis, like, sorry, but you don't control our government, and we don't have to get your permission to do things. And you have Steve Witkoff, Trump's very aggressive envoy, who's trying to get a diplomatic solution in Ukraine with Russia, as well as in Gaza, as well as with the Gulf states, as well as rescuing hostages, basically blaming Israel for the fact that there are still hostages there. Something that, by the way, the hostages' families have done as well, saying that Netanyahu doesn't care about the hostages, doesn't really want them there. That's the pretext. And so we're seeing lots of different examples of things that would have been unthinkable even 3 months ago when it comes to Israel and the United States. Here is the latest example. Earlier today, it was announced that Hamas had released an American citizen who's also an Israeli citizen named Eden Alexander. And though the media and the government, various politicians keep calling him, an American from New Jersey, he's actually an Israeli citizen who went to Israel, not to sightsee, and then got kidnapped by Hamas, but he was in the IDF. He was in a foreign army fighting for a foreign country. He was in uniform. He was in a military base when he was detained by Hamas. This isn't just some innocent civilian. This is somebody who was fighting in a war. But obviously, anybody who's in captivity, who shouldn't be, and is released, that's something that is positive. But the amazing thing is that Trump and Witkoff negotiated the release of Alexander without the involvement of the Israelis. They went around the Israelis, directly negotiated with Hamas, using Qatar and Egypt as their mediators, as their go-betweens. And as a result, Hamas, as a good gesture of faith to Trump, released the last American hostage that's alive in Gaza. Here you see from Axios, Hamas to release Israeli-American hostage as a gesture to Trump. Quote, Hamas said Sunday it will release Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander, who has been held for over 550 days, as part of an effort to reach a ceasefire deal and resume humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza. Alexander's release is also thought to be a gesture by Hamas to President Trump as he visits the Middle East later this week, sources said. The Israeli Prime Minister's office said American officials had informed Israel of Hamas's intention to release Alexander as a gesture to the U.S. without any conditions or anything in return. Israel was preparing for the possibility that this move would materialize. Per Israeli policy, there will be no ceasefire while negotiations take place, and Israel remains committed to defeating Hamas. So this is yet again, like Trump's decision to stop bombing the Houthis in exchange for a mere promise that the Houthis would stop bombing or attacking U.S. ships, but not insisting on any condition that they stop bombing Israeli ships, where this is something the Israelis weren't involved in, and they only learned about it afterwards. I mean, this is unheard of for the U.S. to do anything in the Middle East without Israel right by its side, making sure that Israel is pleased with whatever it is that we're doing and has a veto power over it as well. And in these two cases and others, as we'll show you, Trump has completely dispensed with that publicly. Here from the Times of Israel, they're talking about this a lot in Israel as well. Quote, source, U.S. didn't brief Israel on efforts to free Eden Alexander until after a deal was reached. And I thought Trump's language that notified the world of this deal was extremely notable as well. He said this, I am happy to announce that Eden Alexander, an American citizen who has been held hostage since October 2023, is coming home to his family. I'm grateful to all those involved in making this monumental news happen. This was a step taken in good faith toward the United States and the efforts of the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, to put an end to this very brutal war, and return all living hostages and their remains to their loved ones. Hopefully this is the first step of those final steps necessary to end this brutal conflict. I look very much forward to that day of celebration. So you notice there that Trump, in thanking the people who made it happen, didn't mention Israel at all, even though this is an IDF soldier that the U.S. got released. And this is now Trump repeatedly calling for an end to the war in Gaza. Now, again, Trump did facilitate a ceasefire that was meaningful at the time. The Palestinians celebrated it. And Netanyahu from the beginning was saying, it's not a real ceasefire deal. We're not actually going to go through with it. We're just going to get some of our hostages back and go back to fighting. And that's what ended up happening. But now you have Trump doing something Biden never did, which is saying this war has to end now. Here was Netanyahu's announcement earlier today, trying to make it seem as though he was okay with this, even though the Israeli media is reporting that he's enraged. Here he is saying that he's just so very happy for the release of this American hostage. This is a very emotional moment. Eden Alexander has returned home. We embrace him, and we embrace his family. This was achieved thanks to our military pressure and the diplomatic pressure applied by President Trump. This is a winning combination. I spoke with President Trump today. He told me, I am committed to Israel. I am committed to continuing to work with you in close cooperation in order to achieve all of our war objectives, releasing all of the hostages and defeating Hamas. That goes together. They are combined with each other. Now, Israel has been using incomprehensible military force against a largely civilian population of 2 million people for a year and 6 months. And at no point did Hamas release Alexander. They've often offered hostage deals, and as the Israeli press has reported continuously, in fact, there was a big news report on Channel 12 News, a mainstream Israeli television outlet that's very supportive of the government, that Netanyahu has constantly stood in the way of getting hostages released because he doesn't want the hostages released because the Israeli public has made clear that they want an end to the war in exchange for bringing the hostages back. And so the minute the hostages are back, it's much more difficult for Netanyahu to justify the continuation of this war, and therefore to keep himself out of prosecution and corruption trials and all the things that face him if he's finally out of office. Here is Barak Ravid, the former IDF intelligence officer who now works as a journalist reporting on Israel for Axios, who said this on Twitter, on X. Breaking, after meeting with White House envoy Steve Witkoff, Netanyahu is sending Israeli negotiators to Doha to resume talks on a broader hostage and ceasefire deal, Prime Minister Office said. Now, this is something the Israelis have not really been doing in any sort of good faith. The Israelis have said, Joe Biden, we're so grateful to him. Never at any point did he tell us, I'm pressuring you to enter a ceasefire. At no point did he even say that, even though Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and their lackeys in the press were saying, oh, they're working tirelessly on a ceasefire. The Israelis say, no, actually, they never even pushed us to get a ceasefire. And now you have Trump on his way to the Gulf states, where he'll visit Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, saying that we want the Israelis to go and meet with negotiators and mediators of Hamas in Qatar, with Qatar mediating, and Trump could mediate as well, to try and bring an end to this war. Trump wants an end to this war. In the Jerusalem Post yesterday, they quoted Trump's Middle Eastern envoy as saying, quote, this, we want to bring hostages home, but Israel is not willing to end the war, Witkoff says. The Trump administration's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, criticized Israel in a meeting with hostage families, according to a Sunday evening report by Channel 12. Quote, we want to bring the hostages home, but Israel is not willing to end the war. Israel is prolonging it, despite the fact that we don't see where else we can go and that an agreement must be reached, Witkoff commented during the meeting, according to sources present. However, he added an optimistic message saying, quote, there's currently an opportunity window that we hope Israel and all the mediators will take advantage of. We are putting pressure on all the mediators and doing everything we can to bring the hostages home. Now, again, this is nothing more than a critique and a complaint that the families of these hostages have been making with increasing vehemence, blaming Netanyahu for passing on one opportunity after the next to bring their loved ones home. Even though for a few months, the idea was of Israel and its supporters in the U.S., oh no, this war is about just give us our hostages. If Hamas released the hostages, the war would be over. And Netanyahu kept saying, no, that's not the goal of the war. They could release all the hostages tomorrow, and this war will continue for a long time. Obviously, they said that their goal was to destroy Hamas. Their real goal, which they're now admitting, is to continuously expand the Israeli military footprint inside Gaza, paid for by the United States. They want to destroy every last standing building in Gaza, just completely turn it into a parking lot. And they want to either force the Palestinians to leave, which is obviously the only reason why you would destroy all civilian life and infrastructure in Gaza, force them out of their land so that you can take it over, or they're going to build a concentration camp. And that's what they call it. They said there are going to be zones, concentrated zones, that the Palestinians can stay in. Inside those, they cannot leave. And maybe they'll get some food and water. But the Israeli plan is obvious and explicit at this point. And it has nothing to do with any of the stated war aims at the beginning, which is true of most wars. And the United States is paying for all of this in many, many ways, not just financially and militarily, but also in terms of its standing in the world. Here from Haaretz on May 8th, quote, Israeli army places returning the hostages at the bottom of its Gaza war goals, despite promises to the families. Quote, despite promises made to the public and the hostage families by Israeli Army Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, that the return of the hostages is the top priority of the planned Gaza expansion campaign, the operational orders presented to commanders on Tuesday put that goal at the bottom of the list. Many of the commanders attending the briefing were also surprised that the Israeli Defense Forces had substituted the usual Hebrew word used to refer to the hostages, hatufim, with the less politically charged term, B'nai Aruba, which also implies they're being used as leverage. The briefing began with the presentation of the operation's goal, which were listed in order as, quote, defeating Hamas, operational control of the territory, demilitarization of the territory, destroying sites of Hamas's rule, concentration and movement of the population, and last, returning the hostages. Many of those attending the briefing were surprised at the list of priorities because they had been told in discussions with the Chief of Staff that bringing back the hostages was the main goal of the war. It was never the main goal of the war. It was the pretext for the war to play on people's emotions. Netanyahu has had so many opportunities to get those hostages back. And it's not me saying this. It's the Israeli media saying this, mainstream pro-Netanyahu television outlets that are just reporting, and the hostages' family, that he has no interest in getting those hostages back. And that's why the U.S. went around Israel to get this one American citizen back, this Israeli-American IDF soldier back. Because they knew Israel would impede it. They had to get it done themselves, and they directly negotiated with Hamas without Israel. Again, another unprecedented act that you would exclude Israel from participating in. I was watching an interview the other day with a woman who was in her 40s, was married and had kids, and she was saying how she really wishes that she still could be in college, that she actually misses college. And when somebody said, how could you possibly do that? She said, I think it's sad that now we're basically told that our learning is over. And that is a common view, that once you get into life, into the stages of life that are more advanced, it means that your time to study is actually over. And on top of that, you have the internet that's frying our brains and making it harder even if we want to. Well, Hillsdale College is the perfect solution to all of that. It offers more than 40 free online courses. That's right, more than 40 free online courses. You can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis or the stories in the book of Genesis, which have remarkable relevance to our public debates. I actually just read the first 5 books of the Old Testament, and it's what so many people cite to this day as their guiding light for how they understand political debates. You can take a class on the meaning of the U.S. Constitution, or the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian churches with Hillsdale College's free online courses. Personally, and I've recommended different ones throughout the months when Hillsdale has been sponsoring our program, that I really love the course, The History of Classical Music, Pythagoras through Beethoven, which is taught by the celebrated pianist and Hillsdale College Distinguished and Fellow Hyperion Knight. This free 5-lesson course explains how music has developed and what distinguishes the greatest musical achievements through the life of Beethoven. It's something totally different from the topics I usually follow or read about, and it's turning out very stimulating, very interesting. It keeps your mind active and growing. As someone who is not at all trained in music theory, it has been really insightful to discover what it is that makes music great and how that has evolved over history. The course is self-paced, so you can start and watch whenever you want. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/Glenn to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/Glenn to enroll for free. hillsdale.edu/Glenn. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.